Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry, and today we've got some general 2026 free agency targets. Free agency is right around the corner here, guys. It's just a few days away. And, we've talked about quarterbacks, and we've talked about a lot about wide receivers on this show over the last few weeks or so, but we haven't talked a lot, or at least not a ton, about some of the other positions that the Steelers could be looking for some free agency help this year, and that's what we're going to be doing on today's show. So we're going to be discussing cornerback targets, safety targets, nose tackle targets, left guard targets, and running back targets for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Another position that they could also be looking at is linebacker if they cut Patrick Queen, but at the time of me recording this video, they have not cut Patrick Queen, and if they're not going to cut any of their current linebackers, I don't think they're gonna sign one in free agency. So maybe that's a position that pops up here, but at the time of me recording this video, it is not something that I think the Steelers are going to be looking at in free agency. You guys can check out our wide receiver free agency targets video that we put out yesterday here. If you guys want to check that out, I'll put the chip to that one in the top right of today's program. And also make sure you guys click that subscribe button for all of our free agency coverage over this next week. All right, we're going to be going live for probably the first at least 3 days of free agency, maybe the first 4, depending on how the market is shaping up and if Aaron Rodgers has made his decision. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button. Join us for our free agency coverage. We'll be taking super chat questions. We'll be having breaking news coverage of every single signing that the Pittsburgh Steelers make, every single trade that they make. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already, because this is going to be your home for Steelers free agency here in 2026. All right, so now let's start with the cornerback position. And what I'm going to do here, guys, is that for each position, I'm going to tell you what I think the Steelers are going to be looking for, and then we'll look at the targets that fit that mold. So let's have a chat here about what the Steelers are going to be looking for at cornerback this year. And obviously you got Joey Porter Jr. as your legit number 1 shutdown corner. But what this team is going to be looking for is a solid veteran CB2 on a modest, likely short-term contract, all right? Probably 1 or 2 years, and I think that they're eventually going to draft a corner relatively early in the NFL draft this year to eventually replace this veteran that they sign this offseason. Now, I think the Steelers' preference is to re-sign either James Pierre or Asante Samuel Jr., okay? Both of these guys were on the team last year. They liked working with these guys. They both played relatively well, and this is Omar Khan, the Steelers GM at the NFL Combine, stating that he would like to re-sign one of these gentlemen.
I'd say all options are on the table right now. Both players are free agents, like you mentioned. Both players are. We'd like to have both of them back. We'll see how it shakes out.
Now, personally, if I have a choice between these two guys, I'm going to bring back James Pierre. All right, first of all, Pierre doesn't have the injury stuff that Asante Samuel Jr. has, but also he's bigger, he's longer, he's more physical. I think he's a better pure man-to-man corner. I know Patrick Graham is going to want to run a lot of different types of schemes here in Pittsburgh, and he's going to want to keep, the versatility of the personnel of this roster intact. With Asante Samuel Jr., I think that you're maybe limiting what your CB2 is going to be capable of doing from a schematic standpoint. But I also don't think James Pierre is going to be that expensive either. Like, you look at The Athletic and Pro Football Focus and ESPN, none of these guys rank this guy in like the top 100 or even top 150 in their free agency rankings this year, which means the Steelers might be, able to bring back James Pierre, somebody that was a really good corner. He was the number 2 graded corner in all of football last year for like less than $5 million per season. I think that is like an ideal situation for the Pittsburgh Steelers at CB2. But a couple of options that do have connections to the Steelers coaching staff out there in free agency that shouldn't be too expensive. Eric Stokes, he played for the Raiders under Patrick Graham last season, and they brought him into free agency and they liked him quite a bit. And then Trayvon Diggs has worked with Jason Simmons and Joe Witt Jr., the secondaries coaches here in Pittsburgh. Obviously, he's still relatively young. I believe he's 27 years old. He shouldn't be that expensive to bring in, and I do like Diggs better as a number 2 corner than as a number 1 guy, but honestly, I would rather have James Pierre than either one of these free agents that the Steelers could potentially grab. I would also guess that Pittsburgh drafts a corner on day 2 this year, just so you guys know. I think that's going to be a 1 or 2 year contract for, Pierre or ASJ, and then, I think the Combine formal meetings speak for themselves. You guys can take a look at all the corners that they talked to. They talked with 9 of them formally, and, it's different tiers, right? They talked with all the guys that are expected to go in round 1. And then, they talked with a lot of guys that are going to be expected to go round 2, and then a couple guys that are expected to go round 3. Like, they obviously have interest, in all the early rounds. I do think that by the end of day 2, so by the end of round 3 this year, the Pittsburgh Steelers will probably take some sort of corner to fill out their defensive backfield, especially, with their depth. And don't forget, we have Brandon Echols, who can play inside or out, that is still on this roster and is a nice, valuable depth piece for this secondary as well. Now, sticking with the secondary here, what is Pittsburgh going to be looking for at the safety position? Well, for me, I think they're going to be looking for a starting caliber veteran that's capable of playing free safety if asked. Because right now, you've got Jalen Ramsey, you've got Deshaun Elliott, neither of which are a true free safety that's capable of playing, single high and, being the one guy responsible for center field responsibilities. Like Ramsey, I think, it's commendable what he did moving over to safety last year when this team needed it. And he played some good football there. Some of it, you could tell it was a corner trying to play safety, and he was learning a position pretty much midway through the year. I think he goes back to big nickel this year, where he can be super impactful. And as long as the Steelers aren't asking him to guard Jamar Chase one-on-one like Terrell Austin and Mike Tomlin were in the beginning of last season, I still think he's super instinctual. He's still one of the best run-defending corners in football. Incredible tackler, great blitzer, anticipatory defender over the middle of the field. Like, I still think in a league that's really starting to be dominated by big nickel defenses, Jalen Ramsey is an asset for the Pittsburgh Steelers that it seems like they're going to keep around. So that means you got Deshaun Elliott, who's your box safety, and now you got to get somebody to play that free safety spot in this big nickel defense that I expect Patrick Graham to implement. And there's some really good options out there, man. Here are the top 5 safety targets that I would have for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Brian Cook was really good for the Kansas City Chiefs over these last several years. He's expected to be the top of the market guy at $13.25 million per season over 3 years. Kobe Bryant also played very well for the dark side defense in Seattle this year. He's a converted corner that switched to safety this year, played very well for that defense. Kevin Byard is a turnover machine as one of the best free safeties over the last decade in the National Football League. He played at a very high level there in Chicago, but he is a little bit of an age risk. He is 33. Jalen Thompson has played some good football for the Arizona Cardinals, and then Alohi Gilman has played in a lot of these big nickel, 3 safety type of defenses in LA and in Baltimore. I could certainly see him being a value option for the Pittsburgh Steelers if they want to bring him in. But some other possibilities here. Cam Curl, the reason why I don't add him to my top 5 is because he's not a true free safety. He's a really good tackler, and he's really good around the line of scrimmage and stuff like that, but he doesn't have the juice necessarily to play a true free safety. Jaquan Brisker is similar in that regard. He's got some tackling issues. He's inconsistent in coverage. Now, I know Brisker's a favorite of Steelers fans because he's from Pittsburgh, but I don't think that that's going to be a terrific fit for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Nick Cross, again, more of a box safety that's got some versatility, great athleticism. I mean, he could play free safety, but he just hasn't been asked to do it a whole lot in Indianapolis. Reed Blankenship, again, more of a fit for the quarter-style defenses. Jalen Hawkins had a good year in New England. That's one that I'm slightly interested in. Donovan Wilson is a name to monitor just because he played under Mike McCarthy in Dallas, and now he's a free agent. He could be a stopgap if the Steelers want to take a safety early in the NFL draft. Jimmy Ward is a longtime veteran that just got released by Houston. And then Jamal Adams, who was kind of like a safety linebacker hybrid player in Patrick Graham's defense for the Raiders last year, actually had the best year of his career over the last several seasons in Las Vegas. He might follow Patrick Graham here to Pittsburgh. Definitely keep your eye on Jamal Adams. But I also bet that Pittsburgh drafts a safety in this year's NFL draft as well. Now, it might not be as early as corner or wide receiver, for example, but I do think that they will draft a safety of some kind with one of their 12 draft picks that they have this year. It could be like a round 1 or round 2 thing if they really like Dylan Thieneman or if Caleb Downs falls or something like that. But I would say probably more towards the round 3 conversation is where I think the safety stuff starts for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So keep your eye on that as well. So pick a pair of of defensive backs for me down there in the comments section. Pick a corner and then pick a safety that you'd like to see the Steelers sign in free agency. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. So in just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today. Well, I'll tell you about our sponsor today. Let me know a corner and a safety you want the Steelers to sign this year. And if you guys want to get a Steelers Talk branded t-shirt, we finally have some merch for you guys available for you on our website, chatsports.com/Steelers Talk. This t-shirt is perfect if you want me to identify you at Steelers training camp with my annual training camp trip in Latrobe, or if you want to wear it during our watch parties on Steelers game days, if you want to rep it at Acrisure Stadium, probably when it's not super cold outside. But, this is a t-shirt, guys, that you guys can wear around the house. You guys can wear outside and rep the channel and show your support. It's only $24.99 on our website right now. Our bosses tell us that the more of these babies that we sell, the more merch opportunities we are going to get here on Steelers Talk when we acquire new players and when there's new nicknames that are given to players and all that different stuff. So if you guys want more fun t-shirt opportunities here on Steelers Talk and you want to rep the channel, chatsports.com/Steelers Talk. That link is down there in the comments and description of today's show. Just click that link. It'll take you right to our website where you can make a purchase today. So greatly appreciate your guys' support. All right, so now let's talk about what the Steelers are going to be looking for at nose tackle, okay? I think what they're going to be looking for there is a proven veteran run stuffer that can be Pittsburgh's plug-and-play starter on early downs, okay? Somebody that can hold the line of scrimmage, somebody that doesn't get driven backwards, somebody that can anchor. I don't necessarily need somebody that's going to get to the quarterback and be disruptive. We've got awesome pass rushers. We've got great edge rushers and great interior pass rushers as well. And frankly, guys, the truth is, Keanu Benton is one of the worst examples of Terrell Austin and Mike Tomlin miscasting a player because Keanu Benton, even going back to Wisconsin, he doesn't anchor well against double teams. Like, he's so much better using his quick hands and his athleticism and his get-off to get into the backfield and make plays that way. But what they asked him to do was play in the middle of the defense and take on double teams and anchor, and very consistently would be driven backwards, creating massive holes in the middle of the Steelers' run defense. It's a big reason why this run defense has been lackluster here in Pittsburgh the last several years, and I hope that Patrick Graham's going to fix this issue, okay? And I'm hoping Keanu Benton can be maybe, the other starting 4I when Cam Hayward eventually retires, because he is very disruptive. He is a very good football player. I just think he's been used in the wrong way under the previous regime, and now it's time to fix that wrong by getting a legit nose tackle here in Pittsburgh. The top 5 guys that I have my eye on, Kyrus Tonga, who was the nose tackle for New England this year, was absolutely awesome, man. Like, it was a big part of their defense this year and their run defense. I would love for him to be in the middle of the Steelers' defensive line this year. Deshaun Hand is a really good run defender that can anchor, even though he's not like as big as some of these nose tackles are. He's only like 305 pounds. He's not like 330, but he's very good anchoring against the run. One of the better run defending DTs in the league, in my opinion. Roy Lopez is a solid veteran nose tackle as well. Tim Settle did a good job for the Houston Texans in the middle of their defense, and Sebastian Joseph Day is a veteran that's done a pretty decent job as a nose tackle throughout his career as well. But I would also like to see the Steelers bring back Daniel Ekuale as a backup nose tackle. I think he did a really good job last year before his injury. I'd like to see what he looks like in the black and gold again next year as a rotational piece and as a piece that's got some chemistry with the players that already exist here on the Steelers defensive line. And when the nose tackle that they bring in, the veteran, gets a little tired, they can bring in Ekuale as a rotational piece. I think I liked a lot of the stuff that he did last year, and he would probably be very cheap on the market coming off of that injury. I'd also say don't be surprised if Pittsburgh drafts a nose tackle as well. Like, maybe they decide not to bring back Ekuale after his injury last year, and maybe they want to bring in a nose tackle. They did talk with some at the NFL Combine, specifically early rounders, guys like Darrell Jackson from Florida State, Kanan McDonald from Ohio State, Lee Hunter from Texas Tech. Like, they're interested in some of these draft prospects at nose tackle as well. So just keep your eye on that. Now we'll shift to the offensive side of the ball, where left guard is definitely a big question mark for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. I think what the Steelers should be looking for at this position is a starting caliber guard that can act as pretty much an elder statesman in this offensive line, because the Steelers' offensive line is still very young, right? Frazier's going into his third year. McCormick's going into his third year. Fautano's going into his third year. Dylan Cook is still very young. Obviously, Broderick's still a young guy. And I love Sayamalo in this group because he was the older guy that's in his 30s. That was kind of that elder statesman that was still a really good football player. And it's still possible that the Steelers could bring back Isaac Sayamalo. I do include him on my top 5 left guard targets for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. Another guy to keep in mind is Elgton Jenkins from the Green Bay Packers. He can play center. He can play guard. He's played some tackle. He's played with Aaron Rodgers before. He's actually very close with Rodgers, so keep your eye on Jenkins. Right now, the market value, according to Spotrac, for him is $15.2 million per year, so he wouldn't be cheap, but he would be a good option. I would also say keep your eye on Connor McGovern, who is a Mike McCarthy guy. He was there in Dallas when McCarthy was with the Cowboys, and he's a bit cheaper, $11 million per season. He's played center as well, so he's got that versatility. John Simpson protected Aaron Rodgers there for a year with the New York Jets. Brock Hoffman was another McCarthy guy that was brought in 2022 as a UDFA, somebody that I've been told to keep your eye on for the Pittsburgh Steelers, especially as a depth piece, because he is expected to come at a pretty good price point for the Pittsburgh Steelers at the vet minimum. But some other possibilities that the Steelers could look at: Joel Bitonio, a longtime left guard for the Cleveland Browns, is slated to hit the open market, and at a 1-year, $6.5 million price point, that's a pretty good value for somebody that's a former Pro Bowler and played pretty well last year. I'd say he's probably their best offensive lineman last year in Cleveland. Then David Edwards is a longtime left guard in this league, veteran piece you could get for about $11 million per season. That's maybe a little bit too much for Edwards, in my opinion. And then Zeitler, has been to a lot of different places. He's been a high grader everywhere he's gone. Even at age 36, he's still kicking, and he's a value at just $5 million if you want to bring him in. But personally, guys, I'd like to just bring back Isaac Sayamalo. Like, I don't understand why it just seems like a foregone conclusion that the Steelers are not bringing him back. Maybe the Steelers just don't want to spend that kind of money to bring him back at this position. And they want to, maybe save some money. But, Sayamalo, a really good player. I know he's dealt with some injuries as of late, and I know he's getting older. But, when he's on the field, he's awesome. And he's, that elder statesman that I want among this young group of offensive linemen. And not only that, but you keep the continuity in place. If you bring back Sayamalo and Cook starts next year, the same offensive line that started the playoff game will be starting week 1 next year. That matters in the National Football League. So, personally, I'd bring back Sayamalo. $14 million per season is not, terribly too much for me, and I'd love to see Sayamalo back in the black and gold next year. Now, the final position we'll talk about today is running back, and I think what the Steelers are going to be looking for at this position is RB2 competition with Caleb Johnson, and kind of to push Caleb to get the most out of him this upcoming season, with a third down back skill set, because I think Jaylen Warren has solidified himself as this team's number 1 running back. He's absolutely awesome, maybe the most underrated running back in football, in my opinion, and you just got to get him a nice solid number 2 piece. Now, my preferred option would be to bring back Kenneth Gainwell, because right now, nobody really thinks that he's a top end running back, free agency target. The Athletic only projects his contract at 2 years, $5 million a year. I'm doing that every single time. I mean, Gainwell and Warren were the best thing about this Steelers offense last year. For just $5 million, getting that duo back together, I think that's a no-brainer for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But some other options that are out there, Rachaad White, it'd be a little bit more expensive than Gainwell. So it's why don't you bring back Gainwell at that point? But then Rico Dowdle has a connection to McCarthy, obviously. He'd be a little bit more expensive as well. And then Aaron Jones is a name to keep your eye on. Very good friends with Aaron Rodgers. He's been one of the better receiving backs in the league for a long time, and he would cost pretty much nothing, the vet minimum. So keep Aaron Jones in mind if the Steelers can't bring back Kenneth Gainwell. But for me, guys, at that price point in particular, as long as the price tag doesn't get out of control for Kenneth Gainwell, I'm bringing him back. I think that's a no-brainer, especially if you want to lure Aaron Rodgers back to be your quarterback next year. He was obviously very, very fond of KG, and he was awesome as a receiver and, as a check down option and all these different things. And I just think that he's a great fit for McCarthy's offense as well. Big-time playmaker, team MVP from last season. If it only costs $5 million to bring this guy back, the Steelers have to bring him back, period. Who's your guy? Let me know down there in the comments section. Which non-wide receiver receiver do you want the Steelers to sign in free agency? And you know what? We're going to actually make this non-wide receiver or quarterback, all right? We're going to just forget about quarterback and receiver for a second here. Outside of those two positions, who do you want to see the Steelers sign in free agency this year? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section, and that'll be it for today's edition of Steelers Talk by Chat Sports. Thank you guys so much for stopping by here today. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.